Today we're going over my implementation of the Q-Sys platform and primarily my UCI and how I use it to control the system, right? UCI is user control interface. Okay, so first I'm going to select it. I've created quite a few. These final four are, well, these three, 1, 2, 3 are, they're completely obviated by the absolute performance selector. That is my UCI that has everything I need. Of course, there's inventory status just so that you can just check the status on your core and on your IO frame. But this is where the bulk of the fun happens. So I select absolute performance selector. And then this is my control panel. So I've arranged it to be the actual speaker models. So these are the three Triad, Cinema Plus Platinum LCRs. These are the Triad In-Wall Gold 6 LCRs that I'm using as surrounds. These are the RSL C34E ceiling speakers that I'm using for the immersive audio channels, be it Atmos, DTSX, Oro, etc. I just have the rectangles in the position of the subwoofers. So in the center, this is where I've placed my modes. So I can switch between modes by just tapping one. So ultimate experience, brolic experience, and you'll see the values in some of the speaker decibels change. Music experience, casual experience, technical native, technical Atmos, technical calibration. So let's go over each of these. The ultimate experience, this answers the question, what if there were only one seat in the room and it were the front row center seat? This mode does not take into consideration any other seat in the entire room. This is when it's just me in the theater, and it creates this very intense bubble. I mean, the rear speakers are elevated significantly. Side surrounds are elevated. The wides are elevated. The Atmos channels are also elevated. So it creates a very intense bubble that it doesn't, or I wouldn't assume it sounds great from other seats. I would assume it may even sound uncomfortable, but from this center seat in the front row, it is, I have spent a lot of time dialing this in, and it is the perfect experience. Okay. The perfect experience. So that is the ultimate experience. Okay. Now we have the brolic experience. The brolic experience is an extreme mode that works for every seat in the room. All right, so a lot of work has gone into that as well, just getting it tuned so that it sounds good from every seat in the room. So the Atmos channels, the side surround channels are also impacted. A few decibels lower than the ultimate experience, of course, depending on the channel. And it's not all linear, so I didn't just decrease all by 2 decibels or anything like that. I mean, each channel got individual attention in listening tests so that it would be perfect in multiple seats in all of the seats of the room. Okay, but this is the extreme, like when I have people over, this is how we watch movies. Then there's the movie experience. The movie experience is if I'm going to watch a rom-com, romantic comedy, or if I'm going to watch a dialogue-heavy film, and I don't necessarily want to hear, because those movies, they have content in their surround channels too, but I may not necessarily want to hear a taxi cab driving to my side at an intense level, where I'm like, whoa, that taxi cab, So this is the movie experience is basically the textbook measuring mode. This is where, at the seats, it's 85 decibels. Each channel comes in at 85 decibels. This is the one where you sit down with REW and you make sure that all of the channels hit the right volume at the primary listening position. So it's about as clinical as you can get. It's still very enjoyable. I mean, the equipment in the room is enjoyable, and the acoustic plan is top notch, and it sounds great. And I would I would put this mode up against in any other mode in any other room anywhere. It's just not as customized as the last two that we just went over. Now, the music experience. The music experience tones down the bass drastically. And also, so this is primarily for female vocals and classical music. And that is because this takes an equalization of the mid-range, and it changes a little bit. It's one of those things that you have to hear to really experience. It does not come through in recordings. I've tried, so you just have to take my word for it, where this is equalized to make female voices and classical music sound better. All right, a lot of time again was taken for that. The casual experience. This mode is for it's for background listening. So, if I'm in there with the kids and we're just hanging out talking, or the wife is down here and we're really just, chatting, the kids are asleep, catching up on what happened during the day. That's where we use a casual experience. We're watching something, but we're not really watching it. Or we're listening to some music, but we're not really listening to it. It's more about interpersonal interaction than so. The volume is ticked down by a few decibels across the board, but the subwoofers is where the volume goes down significantly. This is not for dedicated viewing at all. It would be very and nobody would enjoy it if you were to sit down and turn the lights off and just watch. But this is just if you still want it to sound good, but you just don't want it to sound like a movie is actually being played, or music with a bass line is actually being played. So it's a very, very reserved setting. And I have 3 technical modes. These are mostly for just evaluation. If I want to know, okay, I like how this sounds in Atmos. So what does it sound just in 7.1? I hit native channels. I'm sorry, not even 7.1. Native channels it gives you just the straight 7.1.4. So it gives you just the clinical without the additional side surrounds or the additional Atmos channel. It just gives you 7.1.4 flat out. The technical mode for Atmos channels mutes all channels. You see all these lights went red. It mutes all of the Atmos channels. Mutes all of the bed channels and the subwoofers, and you only hear content that exists within the immersive channels. And calibration mode. This is the mode where everything in this mode is actually tuned to be 75 decibels at the main listening position, not 85, but sorry, like the movie experience, but everything is tuned to be 75 decibels at the main listening position. This is for basically when I want to do any type of evaluation or measurement, and then this is my baseline. All right, now let's take a look at some of the other modes. Okay, before we go down each section of control, just some basic fundamentals. So each decibel can be controlled by clicking in this box and then assigning a decibel volume. I used to have the slide function, but when you're tuning and you really want to be accurate, it's not always the most accurate, or it can be extremely accurate, but it takes a very gentle touch, which I don't have when it comes to this. So for me, it's easier to directly input the decibel values into a text box. But this all happens in real time. I change a decibel in here on this UCI. It changes in what I'm listening to immediately. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Okay, also tapping a red button will mute any channel. Again, all in real time. If I tap any red button, or it'll mute the subs. This can be very helpful when trying to isolate a problem. It can also be very helpful when you just want to hear what is coming out of each channel. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go down. So first, a quick overview. We have the speakers on the front wall, speakers on the right wall, speakers on the left wall, speakers on the rear wall, ceiling speakers, and then the decibel meter that shows the sound value when content is being played through. So here again, I went with the exact models. This is literally based on the makeup of the front of this theater. There's a screen, and behind this screen are these literal speakers. These are the Triad Cinema Plus Platinums, LCR. These are the Seaton F18 subwoofers. They're two behind here, they're two behind there. Their positioning is 100% accurate. This is exactly how they're positioned. This is where the triads are in the baffle walls behind the screen, and the subs are indeed directly below the triads under the baffle wall. They're actually in a baffle wall cutout that's cut specifically to fit them. Okay, so what I use this primarily for is if I'm measuring, then I'll tap the Parametric EQ button, and then I'll get the Parametric EQ option. So from here, I can mute, I can change the individual gain of the speaker, and then this is where the fun is. I can select my band, so, that at, I'm just playing around here. Say at, let's make it realistic. Say at 80 hertz, or 85, that's close enough. I want to raise it. I want to say a steep curve, and I want it to go up by 5 decibels. And that is how I do that. And then I would hear the difference in real time. Again, the biggest benefit of this is that you hear these changes in real time, which is critical to assessing and dialing your system in. I mean, getting your speakers measuring perfectly is step one. But if it were that easy, anybody could do it. I mean, tuning a system is very different from just measuring and getting flat in on speakers. All right. So being able to modify the signal that you're getting is very important to the sound of your overall cinema. Okay. So that is what I do for the front wall, and I do this for all of those. Like that just now I hit for the sub. They're all locationally based. So to modify the Parametric EQ for the left speaker, I hit this one above it. Same for the center, same for the right, same for each subwoofer cluster. Okay, now on the right wall, go ahead and hit right wall. Now this is what the right wall looks like in the theater. Literally, go to the right wall, and then I have the speakers placed exactly like this. Okay, and they're behind the panels. I have representation for the light strips here. So, and then this is the seating placement is also accurate. All right. So, and same exercise. Hit PEQ, and then you modify the values. Okay. So for that one, I can, again, if I want to invert, I can invert. If I want to mute, I can mute. Bypass. If I want to test something. So if I want to switch back and forth between what I just changed and how it was before, then I just use this bypass. I hit bypass, all of a sudden I'm hearing what I had before, and I turn off bypass and I'm hearing the changes that I made. So it's a really critical tool. I highly recommend having this available on your UCI. Okay, left wall, same exercise. A back wall, same thing. And ceiling. This was so critical when I was dialing in the Atmos channels, because there are 3 rows of Atmos channels that cover the entire listening position. I spent quite a bit of time dialing this in particular on this screen, and it actually was extremely helpful. The reason why I have designed my UCI like this is because I like to make changes without having to have my laptop directly on my lap. Like I may want to just make changes on the fly, and or even if I'm in for a long session, if I'm listening, I want to be able to quickly make changes in real time. And the laptop, it has to be hardwired, which is not a problem. I have a hardwired Cat 6 cable in this room, but it is a little bit of a hassle. So it is much easier for me to just, at a whim, just whip out the iPad and then open up and go ahead and get started.